Well, it's hard to believe that we were just here last night, but now that I've gotten a chance to look at things, it's always an exciting part of the year. The tournament for me has been one of the highlights in my life, much less my coaching career. So I'm glad that it's here. I'm glad that we're close to home. I mean, I'm glad because of our fans, of our student athletes, of our parents, even for the media. You know, it's a more doable deal. I mean, that's the one thing I do hate about basketball compared to football. I've said it 100 times. Bowl games, you get to plan ahead for 3 weeks, 4 weeks sometimes. NCAA tournament games, it's sometimes 2-3 days. And so this makes it a little more normal. We'll bust down there because those are the rules, and I'm great with that. I think it'll be good. We didn't start off March as well as maybe I'd hoped with the Big Ten tournament, but at the same time, learned some things, hopefully got them corrected. We spent a lot of time last night, a lot of time this morning dealing with Southern Cal. We do know much more about them, and yet it's a little more confusing. We played one team, they played Oregon. At the time, Oregon was injured all year, so it's been hard to compare to that. But I know they played teams like Arizona right to the wire, beat UCLA, who's really good. They're talented, they're athletic. Got a pair of guards, one 6'3" and one 6'9", and Boogie Ellis and Drew Peterson. Peterson is he's a long kid. He's got, I guess, Larry Bird qualities. I mean, he's really a good passer. He can shoot the ball, but he's a really good passer. They put him in a lot of mismatched things, kind of like Pickett, or they try to get you to switch off on him and then back it down. And I think the matchup is good from the standpoint that they don't have the dominating center. They've got a good center in Morgan, who's a shot blocker and a rebounder. But in our league, we played against so many centers that we've had to double and do different things on. I don't think we'll be doing that same thing here. So we know they can play with anybody because they've played with two of the best in Arizona and UCLA. And yet, we're still watching film as we go. We got 3 done last night. I got 2 or 3, 2 this morning, and now we'll start breaking it down and get ready for a practice here in a little bit and trying to implement some of the things that we think we need to do. It's the tournament's all about matchups, as we all know, and if you're a team that doesn't handle the press well and you happen to get a team that presses, it can be a problem. If you're a small team, you happen to get a big team, it can be a problem. For us, it's a different team than we played because of the wings. They've got different guys that can shoot it, and yet their best attribute right now, analytically, is their defense. They've held teams to under 40%, which is very, very good. So they've got a dynamic guard who's all Pac-10, and Alice that can get a shot from anywhere and shoot it from anywhere. And they've got other guys that are very capable, have size and strength, and that'll be what we'll have to deal with. So questions, I'll take them.
Tom, you kind of alluded to it, Drew Peterson being 6'9", but they don't really have a dominating center. But if you go by minutes played, they're the 5th tallest team in the country and 2nd in the field. Their guards are of the longer and taller size. Do you think that poses any problems? I know you mentioned yesterday Tyson being a little bit smaller on the defensive side and stuff like that. And I'm wondering what kind of lineup strategy you plan to do, whether you take advantage of the bigs that you guys have or go a little bit smaller to match up with them.
Well, I don't know if you go smaller to match up with them because their center's 6'10" or 11. Their other forwards 6'7". They have 6'6" and 6'9" on the wings, and so that's big. So I don't know if I'll go smaller, but I think I know what you're asking. The fact that Peterson is more of a perimeter 6'9" guy, that can, post up some, but he can really pass out a post, and he still can shoot it. I mean, they shoot the ball well, their three-point percentage, but analytics, just think what you just said. I mean, they're the tallest team in 1 minute, and then you got to go small against them, and can you create some problems for them? I think one area we have some versatility, and this is what I talked to Malik about today, because I think he is still our most versatile player, and it's been a tough comeback for him. I was talking to a couple coaches today around the country that have had injuries with guys, and some have come back slow and some aren't back yet, and you see some of that. I mean, I saw what a healthy Oregon team, but still healthy but not back, it ended up. So I think Malik is a big key. I told him that this morning, so I said I'm gonna let everyone know that I think he's a big key, and I don't think that's pressure on him. I think it's just it's a privilege. It's an honor that I think he's got to be one of the guys that plays well if we're going to advance in this tournament.
Tom, you've been to 3 Final Fours after losing the first game in a Big Ten tournament. How much does momentum matter at this time of year?
Well, when you go to the 3 Final Fours, it matters a lot. It doesn't matter at all when you lose those games. When you win those games and get beat in the first round, it doesn't matter at all. And that's the advantage of experience, and that's the pain in the butt of an experience, because I look back and it's happened a lot of different ways. I think you saw a team playing with incredible, nothing to lose, confidence gaining in Ohio State, made shots that when I went back and looked at the film, as poorly as I felt we played defensively, I did not give them enough credit for some of the shots they made offensively. And so I look at this. We've played one of the best schedules, again. And so I think our guys are prepared for anything and everything. I think we've gotten up off the canvas enough times that we understand that, you can't let it linger. And that's kind of what we talked about Sunday. We had some long meetings, and some meetings with players and some meetings with our team to try to really talk about where we are. We brought up some of those things. I've said I've been there through a lot of different scenarios, but this team is its own team, and experience helps from my standpoint, but it doesn't necessarily help from their standpoint other than what I can give them. And I thought that was one of the keys that I talked about. Are we really focusing in? Are we listening? Are we learning? Are we getting better? Are we just taking it for granted? That's kind of the reason I had the thing last night. I think a lot of things are taken for granted around here, and some of them my fault. So I don't blame anybody for that. I think that players think it's just going to happen sometimes, and I did not think we took for granted Sensabaugh being out and all that. But as I look back, I can't figure out how you could practice that good and not play better than we did. So, go ahead.
So when Iowa kind of comes limping in,
Yeah.
and Penn State is on this incredible surge, that doesn't have any direct relation to what's going to happen this weekend.
Well,
You gotta figure out how to turn it off.
Fred, you've been figuring it out for like 15
Well, I
years.
know it, but I don't think of it. Go ahead.
Well, I hope they're not watching this press conference nationally. I don't think what the hell's going on in East Lansing. But yeah, I think it can matter. But I do think matchups matter more than anything. But nobody would like to feel better about your team going into a tournament than me. Everybody would like to feel better. But you can look at it the other way too, and that's the glass half full or half empty. You have a little chip on your shoulder for how you played the last game and what goes on there. And We got a mature enough team with some of the veterans we got that they understand the situation, and that's why I talked to them more bluntly about, look, I've been through it this way, I've been through it this way. The bottom line is, are we going to focus in for the next 5 days and really concentrate on what we got to do, because we're good enough defensively if we play good defense. We've shown in the last 3 weeks to a month that we're good enough offensively, and if we could ever put the two together, we're good enough to make a real run, and that's what I've said. But if you only do one of them, you're good enough to come home the first weekend. When you think about, as I was watching this little video last night that my group put together, was nothing I even knew about, but I realized that my first couple of years, when you were a 1 seed, you were out of the first weekend. I mean, you just almost had a ticket to get out of the first weekend, right? I mean, you were all there. Or some of you were there, most of you were there. Now, I mean, I talked to a couple coaches today. I just talked to Calipari again. They played Providence, who I think is damn good. They're 11 seed. It's so different that we learned a couple of years ago with Virginia that the 1 seed isn't safe the first game, much less the first weekend anymore. So the game has changed. Does that mean that the tops come down or the bottoms come up? I do think there's better teams. I think the tops come down a little bit. I don't know if there's many elite teams. I think these new rules are going to change that even more. And hopefully we don't get into what the NFL is a lot now, is a lot of 9 and 7 or teams. I mean, that breeds sort of mediocrity, but it's because everybody's pretty good. So I don't know. I look at each game right now as I still want to win the weekend. The program's at that level where that's what you got to do. Still know that you can't win a weekend without winning the first game, and I still say that there is no first game that's very safe anymore, and that is different. The last probably 10 years, I think up until then you felt pretty good about getting out of the first weekend, pretty good. And now I don't think you feel very good about getting out of the first game, no matter who you are.
Tom, you mentioned talking to Malik and him being a key. A month ago, felt like he started to turn a corner. Friday in Chicago, not comfortable at all. Where do you think he is, or how close do you think he is to sort of feeling like himself again? Does that change about days?
It does. Like the other day, he was still a little sore. I mean, the poor kid has not been healthy all year. And, I mean, it's the way it is. It's nothing that I think more rest. Like some of the coaches I talked to that have some injuries that called me about my two. I said, but, it's not the pros where if you just don't practice them, they can play the same. And that's part of the problems we've had, and even when he came back and he was doing okay and he still wasn't with the team, all the practices. So how are you the same defensively? How do you run the same stuff? It's more challenging, there's more guys out more now than there ever was. Does that mean whatever it means? I don't know what it means. But in Malik's case, I mean, I said I want him today, and you could cry for him because it's important to him. He wants to, do well, and there's times like he shot the ball really well yesterday, and didn't shoot it very well there, but didn't look very comfortable in Chicago. That was the first time I saw him not look very comfortable, and I think things were, foot was bothering him a little bit. Didn't say nothing, talked about it today. But there's no excuse on it. It's just a fact of life. It's the way it is. And, no matter how you cut it, he missed 10, 11 weeks, and then he missed weeks when he was back of not being able to practice full. And there's not many guys that are that good. It's KD that, little sprained ankle, and they say you're going to reevaluate it in 3 weeks. I mean, it's just amazing how much time it takes now for some of these things. And then you got to be physically ready, and then you got to be mentally ready. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and I think he's in a good place. I think he was in a good place when we came back. I thought he was in a good place before we left. I don't think that was the norm of how he's played. He just didn't look comfortable, and hopefully he'll be comfortable, because I think he's a big key, because we need somebody that can do things at different positions and guard different positions.
Tom, you've seen just about it all, and yet how unique was this season from the schedule to the injuries, tragedy on campus, and how do you find the right buttons to push? Also, as you said last night, these guys went through the COVID era, which changes another dynamic. Just how unique of a season.
Well, I've never felt sorrier for a group of guys than I have these juniors and seniors, last year's group even. I mean, I think the COVID, I think it affected probably all of you, some of your families, but I think it really separated people. Another reason I wanted to get people together last night. It separated people, and when you're in a team sport, that's not good. So these guys have been through a lot, they really have, and so have other teams. I mean, they haven't been through the tragedy on campus, but everybody's been through all the problems that went on with COVID, and then the social injustice and what we all had to deal with there, and what was going on. And so we've all learned how to kind of navigate through it, but it affects everybody differently. If there's one thing I learned more from the tragedy on campus, was everybody handles certain things differently. And you just want to cookie cutter it and put it all the same, and it doesn't work that way. And so we've had more individual meetings, we've had more meetings to try to see where guys are, how they feel, just in general. I don't mean about that, I just mean in general. And I think that's what the last 3-4 years has done. And maybe I haven't handled it right, who knows? But we're doing the best we think we can do. But those are all kind of sad, negative things. The positive thing is, guys, we were playing about as good offensively as we could play. And we have been a good defensive team for a while, up until recently. So I think there's a lot more positives I can build on than the negatives.
Building on trying to find a way to put those two together. Earlier in the season, you mentioned how frustrating it was having a lack of practice time, because you had so many games after game after game. Well, when you take the floor, you're going to be 2 games in 2 weeks. So, how do you find that balance?
That's not enough. That's too many practice times.
I was going to say, how do you
A good coach would complain about anything that doesn't work in his favor. So we probably, the extra day, getting that double bye, I don't know whose idea that was. It was a terrible idea. That's about the way it works, But the truth of it is, at this time of year, how do you get to practice, and how do you, a long season? I mean, you look at football, it's like 3.5, 4 months. You look at basketball, it's like 5 months longer. It's been since the end of September that we've been going at it, and that's a long period of time. And so what we're trying to do is a little bit of both. We're trying to conserve some energy, and we're trying to get really efficient on the things we think we're weak on. So we really looked at, is it ball screen? Is it doubling the post? Is it this? Is it that? And really kind of put some film with some walkthroughs, with some live stuff, and continue to learn and grow, teach. And that's what the battle cry's been this week. That's what it was yesterday. We only went an hour because we did an hour of film. Today we'll probably go a little longer, and then had a film session this morning. We will have one tonight, and yet trying to keep it short and sweet and fresh. So, everybody's trying to do it a different way. I know coaches that are working out for 40 minutes now. I know guys that are going 3 hours. Everybody, it's kind of get a feel for your own team. But I do talk to my team about it. I mean, and that's what I trying to do as good as I can is communicate with them, not just make decisions, make joint decisions on hearing what they have to say and figuring that out, and still doing what I think is best with the experience I have.
Tom, on Friday you were a little disappointed, I guess, maybe with AJ. I'm wondering, in the days since, do you get the sense that you guys are coming closer to getting on the same page, and just how important is that for you guys to do what you guys hope to do?
Yeah, I think the problem is I open up too much and I tell you guys everything, and so it makes it sound like it's the Hatfield and McCoys, and it's not. You got to understand something here. In a Division 12 school, I played the point. Mark Montgomery played it here at Michigan State. Thomas Kelly played it here. Doug Wojcik played it in the Naval Academy that went to us Elite Eight. You're a point guard in any program, it's hard. And when you're in one that has had some of the guys we've had, I mean, you can look at college basketball and look at Mateen Cleaves and Magic Johnson as two of maybe the best leader point guards ever to play. I mean, seriously. And so you come into that situation, and much is expected, much is demanded. Sometimes much is not always understood. And so yeah, I've had a lot of talks with AJ, because I think AJ is still as big a key as anybody. I mean, the league's going to be a key because of certain things. But as I've told you 100 times, once in a great while, I think the Chicago Bears, I think we're one team. I think if Philly would have won it, maybe they would have been one. But maybe, I'm just thinking of football because it's so much easier. The Baltimore Ravens,
Tampa
you
Bay.
can have an average quarterback,
Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, yeah.
Tampa Bay, but they come once every 8, 9, 10 years. And 90% of the time, you need the Tom Brady's, to win championships. You need what's the name at Kansas City. You need elite of elite players, and so point guards matter. They're our quarterbacks, and when you have to play both sides of the field, in football you only have to play one. You have to play both sides of the court. It's even more important. But AJ is a unique kid. He's come a long way. He's, if you ask me, he has a chance to still be really, really, really good. I told him once that AJ, one of the problems is you're really stubborn, and I'm really stubborn. We wouldn't be a good mix for marriage. That wouldn't go over big, because you can't have two. If I was the president of the company, he was the vice president, it probably wouldn't go over good. You know what I'm saying? So him figuring out how to listen to what we're saying and yet still have the cockiness and the little arrogance, that every great quarterback needs to have, is the balancing act. And I want something out of him that I've had over a lot of the ones that have won championships. And I keep telling him I can win games. I don't know if I could get Fred and win games, but I could probably win games. Probably I could. I think I really do if I put enough good people around him. But you can't win championships. You can't win big. You can't go deep into a tournament unless your head is a key. And so, relationships with players is unique. And I'm pretty open about it to you guys. The truth of it is, what I love about AJ Hoggard is he is like me. He's stubborn. He's a fist fighter. He's tougher than nails. What I'm trying to... Winning is something that all the great players I've had, and I think a lot of them, but nobody was about winning like Mateen was about winning. And it's hard to find that. I mean, Denzel was great, and this guy was great, and Tom and Cassius and Miles and Jaron, and I mean, there are a lot of great players, but a lot of those guys weren't the quarterbacks either. And the quarterback has to be about winning and doing winning things, and sometimes winning things to him are different than winning things to me. And so there's always going to be that, I mean, I don't know, you always find out after. Was everything perfect with Judd and Magic? Was everything perfect with Brady and Belichick? Was everything perfect with, whoever? Never going to be perfect, because just the way it works. But do I think AJ is ready to make the contribution that I think he can? He's already shown he can. He played really well. And my question was, well, why did you look at yourself in the mirror in the first half of the Nebraska game and you didn't like yourself? Well, what changed in the second half when I loved you? And that's what we got to figure out, And so that's what we spent a lot of time on that. And we always spend a lot of time on that. And I spent a lot of time with Mateen, and I spent a lot of time with Drew Neitzel, and I spent a lot of time with Travis Walton, and each one of them right on down the road. Tum Tum and Cassius, and some are a little more receptive than others. Some it takes a little longer than others. And yet, when I look back, and this is what I told, nobody was more stubborn than Mateen. Nobody was tougher than Mateen. And I know I'm using it 20 years ago, but that's my standard. Judd, he never liked one guard he had. He got ruined. Magic was magic. And so everybody else was tragic. And so, how good they were always compared to somebody. Well, I do the same thing in my own mind. I mean, I had a guy that I knew winning was so important. This day and age, it's changed for everybody. And so that's what we're trying to work on, and it's a process. And it sometimes is frustrating for me. I'm sure sometimes frustrating for him. But as far as going down on a bench and sitting down and explaining what I need and having him look one way and another and everybody to evaluate that, I don't really give a damn. It doesn't even faze me. Because I had fights with Mateen and he had fights with me and I had them with Denzel. I mean, those things are so overrated. If two people are trying to win something big, chances are it's going to take some time in the process. And so I feel good about where he is right now. I think we talked about what I didn't see or what my staff didn't see, and maybe he looked at it a little differently, and so we'll see what happens. But we're in a good place as a team. We understand what we didn't do, and we're ready to hopefully make amends with some of that.
Time for a couple more.
Max trying to save me. This is what Max does if he thinks I'm going too far, and then you guys ask some of those dumb questions that get me in trouble, which I don't blame you. But this is so. Thanks, Max, but I got more years than you, so don't worry about it. I'll handle it.
One more broad overview. You guys have been in that position as a one, done good things. You've lost as a two, but that 7 seed in particular, you made a couple of deep runs, and I think you lost to Jordan Mason maybe or Nevada as a 7-10.
Yep.
What's the difference? What needs to be the difference between making a deep run as a 7 seed and losing her? What is there a common thread?
Yeah, I think the biggest common thread is, I was alluded to it last night, it is definitely harder to keep people focused on the task that they have to do. And I told you that you get in a tournament and the my bads, or, well, I only did it once, or, if there were things that should be, if there are mistakes that shouldn't be made, you're usually going to go home. So you can't make mistakes unless the other team makes more than you do. You can't make mistakes. You can miss shots, you can do this, but effort-related things or things that you've gone over and over and over and they know and just lose focus. I think that is probably the biggest challenge for coaches now. Can we keep guys focused? Because there's so many things. I mean, it's got to stay focused, but you got to get your podcast in. You got to stay focused, but you got to get to the bank and cash your NLI money. You got to stay focused, but you got to think about where am I going to go next year. It's so much more difficult than you all think, and everybody just thinks I'm on this soapbox about it like I am Twitter. I'm not. I'm real. I'm telling you the real issues, and the real issues are we spend more time trying to keep guys focused on the task than we do trying to do the X's and O's, and so it's a new part of the job. You know, it doesn't make it bad. It just makes it's real. I mean, you people are doing the same thing. People in business are doing the same thing, and so I'm cool with that.
I was just watching you during the selection show last night, and you were grinning ear to ear whenever they'd go to the network would go to those teams celebrating getting in.
Mm-hmm.
I know you created the monster. It used to be that way here. Well, what do you like about that? Why is that so cool to you?
Because I remember having parties in my basement, and Pat Morris would bring over salsa and chips, and we had the whole staffs there, and I was an assistant coach, and the process was a big part of the fun. And we've kind of eliminated the process. Not anybody's fault. It's really not. Some of it was COVID's fault, and I guess we can blame them since it's not an individual. I don't think. But anyway, I do enjoy that because some kids, I mean, when you see, was it Howard? That it's been like 30, 40 years, you know, or something like that. That is so cool. Like I'd like to jump on a plane and go celebrate with them, you know. There's something about the purity of those moments that are special, you know, like you say, well, there's 68 teams. Well, there's 350 some teams. So there's 270 teams that don't make it, and or 80 or whatever it is. And you should be excited, you know. Unfortunately, when you get spoiled and things go, and when I say that now, don't write it like I'm calling you or my fans or me. I have the ability to have a party, you know. Now, I haven't had it for a while because of COVID and some other things, but I just said to myself, what are we doing? We better celebrate the good things because we are definitely going to get crucified on the bad ones. So I did enjoy it. I watched every one of those, and then I watched it at 1 o'clock in the morning too, and I like that. I get a kick out of that, and I think our people last night, I think everybody, you know, just felt good. It was because you got to share an accomplishment with more people, and then I saw a couple of them with just a team there, and I've done that before too, and yet it wasn't as cool. It was more cool when everybody was excited. Anything else? Yes?
Tom, you said earlier that you learned a few things in Chicago. I'm curious what they were, and was one of them who was ready for that stage and who wasn't, because a couple of guys looked like they weren't quite.
Yeah, you know, like you always say,
relaxed enough.
Mateen, you know, Malik didn't look the same, but he's ready for that stage. He's been on the stage, so it wasn't that. It was that.
Like Kohler, for example.
Yeah, Kohler. I mean, freshmen are going to go through that. That's part of the process. But what I learned is I don't think there's been enough emphasis placed by maybe me on how important the little things are. Every coach talks about the little things, you know. One of my great, funniest, and yet motivating movies was Any Given Sunday, you know. football, a game of inches, every inch matters, everybody heard the speech. We played it to my team. But I think sometimes they don't realize that the inch that matters is maybe a cutout, maybe a pass that's deflected, maybe a casualness to something, We've got to start, we're in a society where everything's okay. Hey, you didn't do this right, it's okay, you get another chance. Well, some things you don't get another chance at. And I think that's the sense of urgency that hopefully I get out of Chicago is it's not okay. It's not like it's illegal, but it's not okay. And the teams that do the less of my bads, or it was just one time, or it was just a mistake, or, they're going to be the ones that move on. And that's what we talked about our team on Sunday, Listen, missing a shot is okay. Missing an assignment that you've been coached on is not okay. I don't care if it happens once or 5 times. We already know. Everybody here knows. We missed a free throw cutout against UCLA. It cost us a game. They went on to the Final Four. If that doesn't tell you something, the problem is, you don't have enough of those players that are around all the time. And did somebody do that on purpose? Hell no. But they lose their focus on a task that they've been coached to do? Hell yes. And so that's what I learned in Chicago, that you got to do a better job of emphasizing these little things. I mean, at Iowa, there's not been very many times a missed free throw has cost Michigan State since that did at Iowa. And it wasn't from a lack of wanting to, it wasn't from a lack of coaching it. It was staying focused at the task you got to do for 40 frickin' minutes. And that's getting harder, I think, for coaches to do. And I think that's the emphasis I'm telling my staff we got to put on that. And then somebody will say, well, is that pressure? Let me tell you something. It is pressure. That's why only a few teams move on. After Friday night, there'll be 32 left. And after Saturday, there'll be 16 left. That's how it works. You do your job, you handle the pressure, you move on. You don't, you go home. And that's the beauty of having experience in it. But sometimes players don't have the same experience as a coach has. Or players don't look at it the same way. It's just one mistake. Yeah, it is. And one mistake can cost you. So every coach looks for perfection. You think we're stupid? We know that that's not coming. But the closer you get to it, the better your chances are at advancing. Anything else? Mel walks in. You know what? I used to say to D'Antonio, it's spring football season. Basketball's almost over, so it's spring football, baby. Come on up, Mel. Enjoy these guys. Hopefully they'll ask you some tough questions. You'll be ready to rock and roll.